Hi, I'm Jason Gorber for ThatShelf.com, and we're here to talk about George Harrison's All Things Must Pass.
Big shelf.
So 50-ish years ago, George Harrison released his first solo record, which really was comprised of all the stuff that he'd sort of collected and never quite released when he was a Beatle. A bunch of the songs were actually demoed with the Beatles. But when all four of the Beatles actually released solo records, it was actually Ringo, I believe, who did the first one. But All Things Must Pass has definitely sort of aged into the classic above them all. I mean, McCartney 1 is fine. Everybody likes the Plastic Ono Band and even into the Imagine era. But really, All Things Must Pass is not only a sort of a miracle of a record, but it has songs that absolutely rival those of the best of the Beatles. And it's quite simple as that. It is aged extremely well. It's another big, brash Phil Spector production. A bunch of them were sort of integrated into the Phil Spector world there. If you look at how Let It Be, the Get Back sessions ended up being with Let It Be, you saw that at least most of them had a great deal of comfort with the sort of more bombastic production style. Remember, the Beatles themselves, what they responded to is the stuff that came just before them, and a lot of that was obviously the 50s and 60s stuff that came just before them. They were a huge fan of the soul music that was coming out of the States, all the Motown stuff they covered, but also a lot of Phil Spector, the Wall of Sound stuff. Someone else who was obviously completely obsessed with that sound was Brian Wilson. So you basically had the Beach Boys and the Beatles very much sort of drawing upon a very particular production style that by the early 70s they were absolutely integrating into their solo works. This baby here, this is actually a first French pressing. It's the earliest one that I had. I had a Canadian one. It didn't sound as good as this. It is a triple set. At the time, it was a fortune. I can't remember. It's something like $80 or something like that when it came out. If you adjust for inflation, something ridiculous like that. Nonetheless, you can see this on the orange Apple label. This one actually says side 1 and side 2 instead of face 2. The first two records are really the main record. Yes, it's a triple set, but all the quote-unquote songs, all the stuff that were there are really the first two records. And then you have what was dubbed the Apple Jam. Remember, Apple Records was the Beatles' own label. And on Apple Jam, you basically have, again, a bunch of jams, a bunch of noodlings with George Harrison and many of his famous friends, the likes of Clapton, etc. The album itself has, just absolutely astonishing tracks on it. Things like Wah Wah, things like, things that he got sued for, My Sweet Lord. But altogether, it really is sort of a wall-to-wall, especially those two records, wall-to-wall, exceptional record. And the first, again, this first French pressing sounds pretty good. It's a little bit surface noisy because, it's 50-something years old, but it does a pretty decent job of reproduction even on a modern system. So this is sort of my go-to. I don't have a first UK, but this is as close as I get. It's just across the channel. Not that long ago, it came out with the George Harrison box set. And this includes his solo records, all in one set. You can see that there's this lovely lenticular thing on the side. I'm not sure how well that's working with the camera, but you get the idea. And inside here is a number of records, all done half speed as part of the stuff at Abbey Road. Comes with a nice hardcover book. And if you look in here, as I pull this thing out, we have a nice reproduction. Again, I'll just put this on the floor. A nice clean reproduction of the original set, the gold writing on the side. And inside here, we have the original poster, reproduction, the sort of gloomy shot of our dear artist. And inside here, our copy of Apple Jam, again with the same Red Apple reproduction, track album 1 and album 2, and Apple Jam, and then just the same as the others, the original sort of colored lyric sheets that came here. Remember, the lyric sheets, the first time they were ever done was actually on a Beatles record, Sgt. Pepper. That was the time they'd ever done it. And again, the Apple Jam, which shows here all the tracks on this. This is, again, a fine sounding recording. The difference between this and the other one, this is, from what I understand, if it is indeed the half-speed master, it means that it has to be digital, because that's the way that Abbey Road does their half-speeds, is from a digital file. There was some talk about whether this whole set was an analog pressing straight from the tapes. Who knows? Doesn't really matter. Sounds really good. It certainly sounds slightly different equalization, slightly different mastering than this one, but it's a really nice sounding version of the record. And it's a box set that I haven't dug into as much. I've had the Super Audio CD set forever, and it's the same thing. I mean, after All Things Must Pass, which I've just listened to the hell out of, there's a bunch of other records that I'm just, I get less interested in as it goes on. I mean, I'm a big sucker for When We Was Fab, but some of the later Harrison stuff I don't listen to quite as much, but I'm actually looking forward to digging into this a little bit more in detail than I have to date. Anyway, all of this is tied to what's in this guy. And for the anniversary, long anticipated, they released a whole slew of different iterations of All Things Must Pass, which includes a brand new remix from, not remaster, but remix, actually going back to the master tape and messing around and creating an entire new sonic signature for this record. It was done with the blessing of the Harrison family. Danny Harrison was involved in the mix. And to say that it's got a mixed result is an understatement. You actually have some people who actually played on the album who are just doing absolute screeds against this release. They did like just a regular vinyl release, then they did a 5 vinyl release. This is the sort of bigger box set. They did it in an insane version, which was like $1,000 and came with the little gnomes and had basically all the CDs and the digital and the vinyl. This is the 8 LP version on vinyl that we're about to open up once we actually get through it. I have to say, and nobody's going to listen to me, but I'm going to throw it out there. Anyone who's sort of buying this version, if you could just throw in just the Blu-ray, I don't need the CDs, but if you throw in the high-resolution Blu-ray, which also has the 5.1, it can't cost that much more money, or have a way for me to mail it in. That I am disappointed that I do not have the 5.1, well, frankly, the Atmos mix, which is technically 64.4 if you really want to get complicated. But nonetheless, I unfortunately don't have the surround mix. I do for all the Beatles records, but for this one I decided to sort of stick with the vinyl rather than going with the CD and Blu-ray. Even though it's digitally mastered, frankly, my vinyl front end is now significantly better than my digital. So this is probably the way that if I'm going to sit down and just listen, I'll either listen digitally on something like Spotify on digital, or I'll listen actually on the vinyl. So if I open this up, it's sort of like a puzzle. You can see here, boom, look familiar, except a lot thicker. So what we have here, what do we got? So we have on the back the 8 LP box celebrating the 50th anniversary of George Harrison's All Things Must Pass. So it has the original 3 LP album, plus 5 LPs of demos, session outtakes, and jams recorded during the making of All Things Must Pass. So it includes a replica of the original album packaging with poster and a 60-page book containing unreleased photographs and material. In other words, so you get that poster that we saw earlier. Great, I have another one. You have this nice big sort of beefy box set inside, and you have it sort of segregated here into 3. There's the hardcover book, and there's the sort of original album, and there's the outtakes. So I'm going to try to open this carefully because I'm that silly person that likes keeping the plastic on the outside of these. I would love if somebody in the comments has any really good outer sleeve suggestions for box sets of this size, so they don't have to be this ridiculous. That would be fantastic if I could actually have an outer sleeve that actually worked with these. It's just, it's nicer to keep them intact. It's as simple as that. So inside here, we have, as I try not to cut myself, we have, again, the box set. So this, the pressing is a little bit greenish. It has a slightly different sort of tone to what it had. We have the poster, again, the gloomy poster. Smells great. And inside here, did they do it the same way they did? So that you have they're not putting the records in the paper sleeves. Thank God, these are terrible for records. Side one, I'd Have You Anytime, My Sweet Lord, Wah Wah, Isn't It a Pity, probably the greatest song on this record. One that really does an excellent job of building the sort of bolero sort of build that Phil Spector truly helped with. What Is Life? Amazing, amazing track. Not For You, the Bob Dylan track. Behind That Locked Door, Let It Down, and Run of the Mill. I mean, just the first two records, incredible. Put in this sort of plastic with paper on the outside, much better than just plain paper. I'm going to replace these with Most by Sleeves. That won't change anybody. That won't surprise anybody, rather. Beware of Darkness, Apple Scruffs, Bout of Sir Frankie Crisp, Awaiting You All, and All Things Must Pass, the title track. That's side 3. And side 4, Dig Love, the massive Dig Love, Art of Dying, and Hear Me Lord. Again, very much echoing his spirituality at the time, and his explorations, coming out of the Beatles and still trying to find his way, as it were. And then we have the Apple Jam. And again, the details, most of you all know this, but it's the Jim Gordon, Carl Radley, Bobby Whitlock. It was Bobby who was sort of fetching about the box set. Eric Clapton, Gary Wright, George Harrison, of course, Jim Price, Bobby Keys, the Bobby Keys, and Al Aronowitz. And then Jim Gordon, Carl Radley, Bobby Whitlock, Eric Clapton, Dave Mason, and George Harrison on side 5. Side 6, the jam is with Ginger Baker, Klaus Vorman, who of course played a very important role in the early Beatles career, the Billy Preston, Eric Clapton, George Harrison again. And then, so that's all in the Apple Jam. So basically, this is the redux of the record. This is the new mix, and it's slightly green so that I can tell it apart from the other version, which is here somewhere. There we are. Right, so if you contrast them, you can see one is much more black and white. One has a slight green tint, almost an apple green tint, one would say. And then if you look at the other records, which are here, pull these out. So this is the hardcover book. A wonderful EMI tape box replica. Tuesday, 26th of May, 1970. Day 1 demos, day 2 demos, session outtakes and jams, party disc. Thursday, 28th of May and Wednesday, the 7th of October, 1970. So inside the tape box, we have all kinds of stuff. And again, very much keeping the same look and feel. All Things Must Pass, take 1. Behind the Locked Door, take 2. I Live for You, Apple Scruffs. What Is Life, take 3. So bunch of basically demos, the usual stuff you get. You can see they've done the apple in green. It's a little bit hard to see, but the apple in green. And then we have one record, 2 record, and then it's divided into the day 2 demos. 3 record, session outtakes and jams, side 1. And then again, this one is actually an Apple Jam like record. So there's all the stuff all in here, good to go, right? So we got side 1, side 2, side 3, side 4, side 1, side 2, side 1, side 2, side 3, 4. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 records in here, plus the 3. Obviously, there's our 8 LP set. That is what that box looks like. And then the hardcover book. And inside the book, we have, as expected, a picture of our dear George. All things must pass. The sunrise does not last all morning. All things pass. A cloudburst does not last all day, by Lao Tzu. Clearly where he drove this stuff. Bunch of poetry, a bunch of drawings, illustrations. One of the jam sessions, there's Billy Preston, there's Ringo Starr. So some, great, and it actually sort of breaks it down. There's, again, a replication of the EMI tape boxes with actual details that would have been on there. It looks like a song-by-song breakdown about what the other elements are. Looks super informative and definitely a definitive version in terms of the collectability of this additional stuff. Which means, why did I buy this if I have these other versions? Well, if I want to listen to just the record, I'm probably going to listen to the originals. Either the French, or if one day I get it first UK, or the one from the other box set. But for all this extra stuff, this album is so wondrous. And if you look at the Beatles stuff, the session stuff is so fascinating that I will absolutely sit down and listen to his stuff. It's not like Weird Esoterica. These are often fully realized versions of songs, different versions of things that you already know and love. And anybody knows anything about me knows that I love various versions of things. So really, I bought this for the 5 records that you can't get any other way. As I said, I would have loved for this to have had the Atmos mix included, just throw in the Blu-ray. Just make my life easier. But that unfortunately didn't happen. But nonetheless, I have this really nice set to go along with all the other ones. It looks quite impressive, and I can't wait to dig in. I'm super pleased that this stuff is coming out. And look, it's a crazy time for vinyl collection. That we're really getting some stuff that we've dreamed of. And the actual pressing plants are so overwhelmed that so many more people are getting in to this stuff. It's really a challenge to get this stuff. It sells out so quickly often. It was quite a headache for me to actually pick this up, but I'm really pleased that I did. I can't wait to actually dig in and listen to it and experience some of George Harrison's glorious 50th anniversary and the 51st anniversary of All Things Must Pass. For ThatShelf.com, I'm Jason Gorber. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next video. Please let us know in the comments about what you would like to see next, and take care. All the best. Happy listening.